Good morning, everyone. As the head coach of the Syracuse University men's basketball team, I take great pride in what our program has accomplished on and off the court for the past 39 years. Ultimately, as head coach, I must also accept responsibility for the conduct of individuals within the program, including those who have found to have committed violations of NCAA rules as outlined in the NCAA Division I Committee on Infractions recently released report. And I do regret that these violations happened, and I apologize for any harm it has brought to my players and the university, or embarrassment it has caused to our alumni, students, and fans. Although the infractions report, get thirsty here, does not find that I had personal involvement in any violations of NCAA rules, the Committee on Infractions has asserted that for the past 10 years, I did not promote an atmosphere of compliance within the men's basketball program, and I did not monitor the activities regarding compliance of those within the program. This could not be further from the truth. You have heard this story from the NCAA's point of view. Today, I'd like to share my perspectives. There are 4 key areas that I want to address: head coach responsibility, allegations of academic fraud, impermissible benefits, and the athletic department's voluntary drug testing policy. First, I believe in the NCAA's head coach responsibility bylaw and what it stands for. A head coach should be presumed responsible for violations of NCAA rules that occur within their program. I agree fully with that responsibility. That is why, as a member of the board of directors of the National Association of Basketball Coaches, I voted for the implementation of the head coach responsibility bylaw in 2005. However, I also believe that a head coach should have the opportunity to rebut the presumption of responsibility stated in the head coach responsibility bylaw by demonstrating that he promoted an atmosphere of compliance within the program and that he monitored the activities regarding compliance of those within the program. The head coach responsibility bylaw is not and was never intended to be a rule of strict liability. In our case, however, the committee imposed penalties on me personally without giving credence to my efforts to promote compliance within the men's basketball program, which is contrary to the head coach responsibility bylaw. In fact, in 2011, when the NCAA enforcement staff issued its first notice of allegations to Syracuse University, I was not charged with a violation of the head coach responsibility bylaw because of my non-involvement in the underlying violation and because of my devotion to promoting compliance within the men's basketball program. It was not until the second notice of allegations was issued to the university that I was charged with a violation of the head coach responsibility bylaw. In the intervening years, the charges against the university did not change. There were still no direct violations of NCAA bylaws alleged against me. Nevertheless, at that time, I even offered to make myself available to the NCAA enforcement staff for an additional interview to discuss the atmosphere of compliance within the men's basketball program, something that the enforcement staff had not specifically asked me about in my prior interviews. But the enforcement staff declined to listen to the additional information that I had. I want to stress again that I take responsibility for violation of NCAA rules that occurred within the basketball program. However, I believe that my effort to promote an atmosphere of compliance with the men's basketball program was disregarded by the enforcement staff and the Committee on Infractions, and that ultimately resulted in my suspension for the first 9 ACC games of the 2015-2016 season. What basis do I have for this assertions? Since 1992, I, along with the other members of the men's basketball staff, have participated in monthly meetings with the Office of Athletic Compliance. My staff and I are in constant communication regarding compliance matters, and I have ensured that open lines of communication exist within the program with respect to compliance matters, both directly to me and to the Office of Athletic Compliance. I meet with my staff on an almost daily basis to discuss compliance matters. My assistant coaches and staff members know the NCAA rules and know that we must follow them. Second, regarding academic fraud, while I'm frustrated with the Committee on Infractions finding that I did not promote an atmosphere of compliance within the men's basketball program, I am most disappointed with the committee's suggestion that academic improprieties were accepted and encouraged within the men's basketball program. Though I take full responsibility for what has happened, I could not disagree more with this assessment. And I believe that the facts support my view. Even though many players come to Syracuse with the goal of playing in the NBA, we demand that our team members, our student athletes, doing the required work in the classroom as well as on the court. This is why I have been a long-time proponent of the academic progress rate. With the exception of the 2008-2009 academic year, when we had 3 student athletes withdraw from the university during the spring semester to prepare for the NBA draft, the men's basketball program has consistently earned an APR well in excess of the minimum required by the NCAA to maintain eligibility to compete in NCAA championships. Even before the implementation of the APR, however, I worked closely with Student Athlete Support Services to ensure that our student athletes are appropriately focused on their academic responsibility and that they have the resources necessary to excel off the court. To this day, I meet daily with our academic coordinator to discuss the academic progress and success of our student athletes. Between 2008 and 2014, 11 of our 13 seniors graduated. We have an APR score of 1,000, a perfect score, in each of the last 2 years. I believe this shows we are paying attention to the academic welfare of our student athletes. In case of academic violations involving our former student athlete, it is clear from the infractions report that these violations occurred because our former director of basketball operations took it upon himself to provide impermissible academic assistance. The Committee on Infractions suggests that I somehow did not do enough to promote compliance or monitor the activities regarding compliance of the former director of basketball operation. This is not true. I engaged in daily meetings with this individual regarding the academic progress of all our student athletes, and in particular, the student athlete identified in the infractions report. When I learned that this student athlete was permitted to seek a grade change open to all students in his college, all students, not student athletes, he could seek a grade change to restore his eligibility. I made it abundantly clear that the grade change should be done in accordance with university policies that apply to all Syracuse students. I was concerned with the welfare of this student athlete, but I never expected, and I certainly never encouraged, these individuals to cheat. This is not my way. Nevertheless, the Committee on Infractions assumes that because a violation occurred, it must have occurred because of my failure to promote compliance. This is an interpretation of strict liability and contrary to NCAA legislation and to my decades-long commitment to compliance and academic success. The Committee on Infractions suggested in its report that there was a 10-year period which I failed to promote an atmosphere of compliance, and during which student-athletes within the men's basketball program, and I quote, freely committed academic fraud. In fact, during that 10-year period, after an extensive investigation, there was one case of academic fraud in the men's basketball program. This involved the former director of basketball operation and a receptionist in the basketball facility improperly inserting citation into a student-athlete's paper. 3 other student-athletes were charged by the enforcement staff with receiving impermissible extra benefits. These student-athletes had their cases reviewed by the university's Academic Integrity Office, and the university ultimately determined that no academic integrity violations had been established. This is far from a program where student-athletes freely committed academic fraud. I note that during this same time period, the committee found that 3 student-athletes in the football program did commit academic fraud. These infractions did not go unnoticed, but the penalties on the football program were far less than what was imposed on the basketball program. Does the central issue of head coach responsibility apply only to the basketball program? This illustrates the arbitrary manner in which the NCAA issues its penalties, not just from school to school, but even within a single institution. Third, with respect to the issues with a former employee of the Oneida YMCA, I knew this individual to be a part-time employee of the YMCA who showed an interest in working with troubled youth, both student-athletes and non-student-athletes. There was no reason to believe that this man would provide impermissible benefits to student-athletes. In fact, before our student-athletes were permitted to spend time volunteering at the Y, this man was vetted by the Office of Athletic Compliance and was given strict instruction on what he was and was not permitted to do under NCAA rules. It was not until after the NCAA investigation began that I learned that this man had provided impermissible benefits to student-athletes. I did not, as the Committee on Infractions suggests, know that any violations had occurred. Had I known that, I would have taken action. Fourth, I'd like to address the university's drug testing policy. The university implemented this policy for the benefit of its student-athletes, despite the fact that the university was not required to do so under NCAA legislation, and we were among only a handful of Division I schools with such a policy. Although I supported the policy, I did not write it, and I had no input into its development. Likewise, I did not administer the policy, nor did I have any decision-making authority with respect to the administration of the policy. I was told by the administrator of the drug policy when a player could or could not practice or play in a game. Again, I fully accept as the head coach of the men's basketball program that I am responsible for the conduct of everyone within our program. And I deeply regret that any violations occurred in our program because one violation is one too many. However, given the circumstance, I believe that the penalty imposed on the university as a whole, and me individually, are unduly harsh. And I feel that the NCAA is punishing current and future student-athletes for the conduct of a few individuals who are no longer associated in any way with Syracuse University. For these reasons, I have chosen to appeal the Committee on Infractions decision. I believe in what we are doing at Syracuse University, and I will continue to build on the great program that we have established. In addition, In conclusion, regarding my future, I am 70 years old. It's obvious that there is a time frame for me as the head basketball coach. As the chancellor indicated in his statement yesterday, I feel 3 years is right for me to be able to continue to do my job as well as I possibly can. The approaching completion of the investigation actually prompted me to clarify in my own mind my plans for the future and my decision to establish that timeline with Chancellor Severud. 3 years is probably longer than I was planning prior to this investigation. However, given all of these developments, it is the right time for the program. In my confidence, we have a great coach who will be working with me every day to help inform recruits regarding the time period I will be here. They will know exactly when I will be here and when I will leave. So all of our recruits will understand what is going to happen when in most cases coaches leave and everybody is stuck. Everybody that's coming in knows that I will be here for 3 years. They committed to coming in before they knew that, and they committed to staying here before they knew that. I told every recruit when I recruited them, I'm going to coach you next year. And after that, I can't guarantee anything, and no other coach can either. But I think we're unique in being able to tell recruits, you only have to listen to me for 3 years, or 2, or 1. And I've talked to several recruits, obviously, about this, and if anybody's concerned about our recruiting or whether we can recruit, I don't think that's an issue. We're giving notice, and we'll explain that to all our recruits. I believe the program will be in a great position when I do retire. Thank you. I'll be glad to take your questions, as always.
Hey, Coach, so does that mean Mike Hopkins, the succession plan is still in place for him to replace that on a full-time basis?
I have to answer that question in a lengthy statement, because you read so many things, and one of them is that I make all the decisions at Syracuse University, and that's why we're still playing in Manley Fieldhouse, I guess. It was my decision, my complete decision, play in Manley Fieldhouse, and I guess that didn't happen. That was a big decision. I have said my wife is the only one that tells me anything, and I meant really, it was a joke in my book that she tells me what to wear, and nobody else does. People tell me every day what to do. My assistant coaches say, Coach, you got to go here. Coach, you got to go here. Coach, you got to talk to this guy. Every day. It's a myth that I somehow run things at Syracuse University. I did not really want to go to the Big East in any way, shape, or form. Oh, we were in the Big East for 30 years. I guess that wasn't my decision. Those are the two most important decisions that were made here, and I would have made the wrong one. Maybe that's why I don't make those decisions. I don't decide who's hired at Syracuse University, whether it's the chancellor or the athletic director or the compliance officer or the person who I work directly with. I've worked directly with 3 people over the last long time. I didn't know who they were until they came in and introduced themselves. I don't hire anybody. Chancellor Severud will hire the next coach. It's his decision who the next coach will be. I have talked to him about it. I believe Mike Hopkins will be a great coach, and I fervently hope that he is the coach here. But that's something the chancellor will decide with the Board of Trustees, like they decide every major issue that happens at Syracuse University. And I decide sometimes what restaurants my family are going to eat in. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
Jim, I want to be clear on this. When you said that the enforcement staff declined to listen to the additional
Yes,
information you had, did they not sit down and talk with you, or they did and just didn't listen to you?
No, they didn't sit down. We requested another interview because, as I said, we were not charged in the entire first two stages of the issues we have with them. And they never asked me in the earlier interviews about, Coach, what did you do? And I think, that's probably why I wasn't under that. I wasn't charged. And the head coach responsibility was active from 2005. But they declined to interview me again on that specific area.
Jim, when you look at the,
Where are we? Yep.
Jim, when you look at 3 years, and like you said, maybe that wasn't the time that you had before, but it is the time you have now, to just go into why 3 years really fits for you and fits for this program.
I think, I don't know if I made this clear enough. I guess, I sometimes don't do that. There was no way, when this started, obviously, there was a 2-3 year time frame. So there would have been no way that I would ever run away from an investigation in progress. The fact that it continued, there was no way that I was going to ever leave this university after 53 years of being other than my family. This is it. This is the focus of my life. That someone would think that I would not see this through to the end. I had no plans to coach this long. This investigation has made it imperative. I mean, I didn't even have, the reason I never thought about retirement, because there was no way to think about it during this time. The Final Four in 12 would have been a great time to go out, but things were not, we were not in a position to go out. I love coaching, but I think you can coach as long as you can be effective. If after this coming year, I thought I was effective this year. I don't think I was as good as I would like to have been, but I think I was effective. If I'm not effective at the end of next year, I won't coach after next year. I mean, that's, the 3-year thing is the outside part of what I'm doing. I told every recruit we recruited this year, I'm going to be here next year, but beyond that, I have no plans. But, 3 years is that's a long time. That's a long time.
Coach, with regard to the NCAA report, you talked about rebutting the responsibility,
Right.
the presumption of responsibility. In the report, they say that you did not rebut the presumption of responsibility.
Yep.
You rebutted facts. You said it didn't work this way, but that presumption of responsibility, that you did not rebut it.
Well, that's what I said today, how I did rebut it right here in my statement, that we did have meetings, that we did have academic meetings, that we did have compliance meetings. Every month, we have compliance meetings with our players twice a year. I'm not throwing any programs under the bus. There are many schools that don't have compliance meetings with their basketball staff the whole year. We have monthly ones, and we're tested on it. So that's part of the presumption, how you rebut the presumption, that you did do things, that you did monitor things. I'll add one thing that I think is important that will be in the appeal process. The paper in question. I am not allowed to look at papers, and I think that's a good thing. I'm not allowed to talk to professors. I think that's a good thing. I could have taken the paper, looked at the paper. You could have looked at the paper. Anybody in academia could have looked at the paper and not known that 2 citations were put into the paper. You could not have known that. There is no way. The only person that could know that is the person who changed the paper.
What about the student? What about Fab Mello? How do you think that he suddenly wrote a better paper, a paper that qualified that made him eligible?
The paper, and this is important, was a 10-page paper on his life. The infractions committee asked me, how could he write that paper in 2 days? I said, I think I could write that paper in 4 hours. And I think each and every one of us could write that paper in 4 hours. And I'd like to just make a comment here. Everyone that has been admitted to Syracuse University since I've been here is fully capable of doing the work here. That has been put in several national articles that we admitted, I'm not being specific here, people who could not do the work here. That is the farthest thing from the truth. He was completely eligible to any standard, more so than about 50% of athletes in the country in terms of what he did academically. So that is there's been a mischaracterization by the constant number of critics who say all of these guys shouldn't be in college. We have never, first of all, I don't admit people here, but Syracuse University has never admitted somebody here in the basketball program, since I've been here, that could not do the work here, who was not qualified. And we have had many at-risk students, as does every college in the country. Every college in the country. And we have graduated, those guys have graduated here in 4 years. We have a senior center who was a little bit of an at-risk student. He qualified under the at-risk student. So we shouldn't have taken him, and we wouldn't have had Rakeem Christmas here, who graduated in 3 years and has completed half of his master's program in 1 year. You don't want to take that guy? I think there's a little racism involved when they start talking about not taking this guy or that guy. He's from a foreign country. We shouldn't have foreign students at Syracuse University. The last I looked, there's well over 2,000 foreign students at Syracuse University. We shouldn't have somebody here because he's from a foreign country? I don't think so. I don't think that's the way we want to go. But to finish your, I think we did rebut the presumption. The Committee on Infractions chose not to accept that we did. And, that's the basis for going forward with an appeal. I disagree with that, as I said in my statement.
Coach Boeheim, you mentioned the differences between the basketball and football program in the NCAA report. I'm wondering if you have a theory as to why the basketball program seemed to be the recipient of most of the NCAA penalties.
I don't know. I wish I knew the answer to that question. I know that, and I don't want the football program to be penalized. I love the football program. I've supported it. I've been to every game here since I've been here. They were the first student athletes to go to the Y. The first. They were involved, obviously, in the drug testing program. They had 3 cases of academic fraud. There were no charges brought. I don't know the answer to that. That's something they would have to answer.
Coach, going back to Mike Hopkins, having been designated as the head coach in waiting and considering your long-time relationship with him, are you personally disappointed that no assurance can be given to him today that he will be the next coach?
No, I don't think that's important right now. I think today what's important is to handle what I have to do here. I am going to be the coach for 3 years. Mike will have talks with the chancellor, as I will, but this is a chancellor's decision, not my decision. This again goes back to Jim Boeheim runs the university. Well, I assure you, if I did, I wouldn't be the 45th highest paid coach in the country. Which I'm not complaining about.
Jim, do you have an option to go past 3 years if you wanted?
The only discussions that I've had with the chancellor is that I intend to retire in 3 years. And he accepted that, and that's where we are.
Is that kind of set? I mean, it's gonna happen?
I stand by that statement.
Coach, maybe get in the middle. Coach, now that you've set kind of the date, there's gonna be a lot of talk about the long farewell, the legacy. What are your thoughts on that?
Do you think they won't boo me at Duke this year? No, I don't think there's any farewell. I'm not Derek Jeter. I saw that. No, there will be no farewell tour, no. It was funny when they said they now booed me after the allegations at North Carolina State. I actually thought when we were there last time, they booed me more. So I think there was a sympathetic feeling there, actually. When I go into an arena and they cheer for me, I'll know it's time.
Jim, in relation to the paper, the Fat Mallow, you said you met with academic services
Yes.
daily, but the paper was being revised a year after the class had been taken.
Right.
Can you explain the timing there?
Yeah, I can. It's open to any student on campus to, on his own, find a professor in that college and ask if a change of grade is possible. There's another story out there that he had an F and changed it to a B. He had a C minus. He needed to petition the teacher if he could do work that would result in a grade change. The teacher agreed to that. I know there's hundreds of these grade changes that happen. I had one when I was in school. I know they happen at other schools. A professor, former dean, I think, said that I never gave any grade changes. Good for him. That means all the professors that do that are not academically sound, I guess? Is that what he's implying? I don't think that's a good implication. The Committee on Infractions asked me, Coach, why did you do this? Why did you let this happen? Let him go get this grade change? I said, it's my responsibility. It's my responsibility to at least inform every guy, well, you have to get a grade change if you want to be eligible. You don't have to. This is what you have to do. This is what you need to do. And I think that's very normal. I think that's what other students do. And he had that opportunity. He found a teacher that would do that. We knew he was writing a paper about his life. I wasn't really concerned about the content. He's not writing the Spanish Inquisition, which you got to, obviously, would a 10-page paper on that. I mean, I did a story on the American Revolution, a 17-page paper in one night. I guess I might be better go back and look at my academics. But it took me one night. I had 32 quotations. But I did it myself. Nobody checked that paper. So I think everybody does their academics in a different way. But it was clear to me that he could do this paper. We played on Saturday at Notre Dame and Monday at Cincinnati, and I was talking back and forth during that time. He was writing the paper. I wasn't physically here. But when I got back, I checked immediately. Is the paper done? It needs to be, is there anything, going forward? No, there was no thought in my mind that he couldn't do this paper. And I had absolute, you hire people, you work with people. You have to have trust in those people. Someone said, well, if I'm told by my boss I don't do it, that means there's nobody in jail then, in the country, for embezzlement or steal, whatever. I clearly said, and we hired somebody and I don't know if this is clear to everybody, who was in charge of academics at a major university for men's and women's basketball, who absolutely knew, as would you or anyone, you cannot put citations in somebody's paper. But we talked about this. Doing the paper, he does it, he does his own work, he does it the right way. I really wasn't concerned about him doing his own work because it was writing out his life story. I don't think he could have got that from somebody else. So I didn't have pause on that. I didn't push it. The paper was in early in the week. The teacher accepted it on like a Wednesday. It went over to Arts and Science like everybody else does. They would not process it. We had a game Saturday. We're playing West Virginia Saturday at home. I would have liked to have them play, but they did not process this. I called no one. I didn't call a soul. That's not my job. I do not interfere in the academics. They checked to my reporting back to me. They checked with the teacher. They went through the process, which they wouldn't do with any other student. They went through that whole process, and he was not cleared to play for Saturday's game. It was not until the following week. Again, even if I could have looked at that paper, I could not have told you somebody put citations in this paper. So, again, I don't know. I asked the Committee on Infractions, what more did you want me to do? There was no answer. There's no answer in the report of what, I should do in that situation.
The discussion of the pay pad, you could go and do this paper and improve your grade. That happened after he became an eligible voter.
Yeah, yes.
And just one more question on a separate note. You didn't craft the drug policy. You weren't responsible for administering it, as you said. It also says in the report that you didn't call parents, which was a part of the drug policy.
That's right.
How do you differentiate between administrating and not doing that part of the policy?
That is, I had one part. I didn't administer who played or who didn't play, who practiced or who didn't practice. The drug policy, and I took responsibility for that, and I do now. No one knew that if you have a policy and you don't follow it exactly step by step, it's the same as violating an NCAA rule. No coach in the country would have known that. I'll accept responsibility. I'll take the punishment. I mean, to me, if you're driving down the highway at 95 miles an hour and you get pulled over, you aren't going to say, well, I didn't know what the speed limit was here. If you're driving down the highway, it's posted 65, you go around the corner, there's no sign there, and you get arrested around the corner. And the trooper gives you a ticket and says it's 45 here. And you've never been on that road before. You have a chance to mitigate that. No one knew. If I had known, I talked to all the parents of guys who had a problem with the drug testing. We had nobody test positive for anything except one substance in the entire drug testing program. Several guys that were tested was one time only. And the reason, there was two reasons I didn't call the parents. One, on the first, trust to me is the most important thing. And the athletic director knew I didn't call the parents. Trust is the most important thing. If you're a first-time offender, you're a senior or a junior, and I bring you in and say, this is the first time you've done this. If you do it again, I'm going to talk to your parents. If you don't, you're fine. And 4 guys never tested again. So it was a trust matter. It was a mistake. And as I told the committee, if I had known that was a rule, which is not an excuse, but in this case, we were one of the only programs in the country testing for drugs. We had many compliance meetings. It was never brought up in a compliance meeting, well, coach, you know, if you have this drug testing policy, you have to call the parent. And there were other issues with some parents that I'm not going to go into today, but it wouldn't have been productive to call the parent. I'm not going to get into specific cases. But yes, I take responsibility for that aspect. To me, the crucial part of the drug testing program is you let somebody practice or play when they shouldn't have. I never made that call. I was told what to do. If I'm told not to do something, a press conference, I don't do it. Because I work for people. Okay?
Coach, we saw a response from Recruit yesterday that said they want to help you go out with the national championship. Does that sort of support and rallying program been universal in what you've encountered since everything happened?
You know, it's obvious that people are going to support what we've done here, and they might be right or wrong. You know, obviously, but I appreciate the support that we have here, that we've always had here, and that we continue to have. And I think the biggest thing to me is, can there's no goal change here. We're going to try to win everything we can every year. There's nothing new. And the biggest response I've had initially, and really for a while, is players want to come here, they want to play for me, they want to play for Mike because they know he's a great coach, and Adrian's here, and Jerry McNamara, and that's why players want to come to Syracuse. It's a great school with a great reputation, and when you look at the facts in the case, to me, everything is serious. There is no excuse on anything, but academics is the most important area. And I think that's clear to everybody. And we had one case of academic fraud after an extensive 10-year investigation. I'll answer as many questions as people want to ask.
The report makes mention of a former academic staffer being a little apprehensive and pushing forward about issues.
This is a great question.
And he cited, you know, maybe basketball has a perceived, advantage.
Yeah.
And he was mindful that a former employee might have pushed it out. What was your reaction to reading those comments? Do you agree with them?
The former employee that he was referring to was Terry McDonald, who was here for 20 years, who was awarded the Hardwood Club Medal, who was one of the great people I know and is a great friend of mine today. And she was instrumental in us having great academic support for her 20 years here. And that is the most fallacious statement I have ever heard from somebody, that she was pushed out, ever. And I've heard a lot of them. But the second part of that, I met with the former head of student services probably on 8 or 10 occasions. We never had an angry word. I never said, you need to do this, you need to do that. We talked about different issues that come up in the program over time. I always talked to the people from the Department of Student Services who dealt directly with us, and our players, and our staff did. I never had an argument or a harsh word with him, ever. There was never anything from me to him that would indicate that he was intimidated. Let me give you another example. I go to eat at a restaurant, and the waitress there says, you intimidate me, coach. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? I intimidate some reporters just because I might look at them funny. But does that mean I'm going to do something to them? I mean, what does that really mean when you say that? Did he think I was, if he didn't do exactly what I said, which I never said anything to him? If you don't get this done, I'm going to get you fired? Did he think that way? If he did, he has no I've never gotten anybody fired. I've never fired anybody since I've been here, in my area or any other area. So I don't know. I mean, I've been told that I intimidate people. I don't do it intentionally. Somebody said I was a bully. I'm funny. I chide people at press conferences, but that's like an act. That's not what I do personally with people. I don't think anybody in my life has ever called me a bully. Does that answer the question?
Coach, Chancellor Sidler said, we were discussing it about an hour ago. A report came out on March 6th, 2 weeks ago tomorrow. You had the NC State game the next day. He said he had conversations
Yes.
with you before the NC
Yes.
State game.
Yes.
Particularly about whether you would make
Yes.
comments after the game.
Yes.
Can you describe what happened in terms of those conversations, that decision, and how you felt about sending Mike Hopkins out after the game? And how he-
I didn't send Mike Hopkins out after the game, number one. I wanted to do the press conference and limit it, obviously, to basketball, which is always going to bring up, I can't comment on that, a few times before you leave. So that was something we discussed. I still wanted to do the press conference, however, because in our preparation for the game, I had not read the report closely. You know, you look at it, but we're trying to play a game. So I didn't think it was really a great idea to go out there without knowing anything really to answer. And those questions are going to be asked. I mean, I'm going to go to the podium and I'm going to say something about the game, and then every question after that is going to be about the report. So it really, it wouldn't have been a productive press conference. Mike would do that as well or better than I could in terms of, here's what happened in the game. But I would have gone. I was counseled not to go, and I don't find tremendous fault with that. I think you might find fault with the dozens of articles that I've read where people said I was a coward without knowing, well, were you told to do the press? Nobody asked me. Nobody's ever asked me that. Nobody's ever asked anybody, to my knowledge. So the assumption is made, you sent Mike Hopkins out there, you coward. I never sent anybody out anywhere, and I did not make that decision. Again, if you believe that I make all the decisions here, then, you're under some delusion. I hope I've tried to dispel that today, a little bit, maybe, I don't know.
Jim, I know you said you're in favor of the coach's accountability
Yes.
Law.
Yes.
And you can't control everybody, obviously. But if it doesn't apply to your director of basketball operations and his direct behavior, who would it apply to?
No, I don't think you understand, Chris, the rule. The rule is I'm responsible for his behavior unless I can show that I have rebutted it. That's a big difference. No coaches, you look at your fired coaches, no coach has ever been fired for not having control. Not one. You can go, you had 20 cases in there. Every one that a coach was fired, he did it. He did it. If I had told somebody, put these in here, get this fixed, do this, do that, I would be fired.
I laid out the circumstances. I thought that was...
You did, but I'm saying, you never laid out a circumstance, you never came to the conclusion, whoops, no coach has ever been fired. And coaches, even now, in this case, have not been held to that rule. I am being held to that rule, and I accept that. There is a presumption of fairness also within the NCAA.
I never said you should be fired. I just think...
No, I didn't say you did.
Okay,
But when you put a lot of articles in there about these guys are fired, it leads people that maybe aren't smart like me to think, well, maybe he's saying the coach should be fired. No. I think the coverage has been fine, it's been fair, your paper. I disagree with things like I always do, and that's, if I didn't, then you wouldn't be doing a good job, I'm sure. I disagree with a couple things that my esteemed colleagues, Mike and Donna, did, which I will have a discussion with them about at some time, but we've had those discussions. Do I not like them? I do like them. I hope you know that. And I hope that you have, well, at least some, I won't say like, but something. You do like me, don't you now? Thank you.
Can you take us through the timeframe of the discussion with Kent on setting the retirement date and when you guys started talking about it?
Yeah, we've talked about it. We've had conversations.
Before?
Yeah, before. And I think that has always been open-ended because there was no need not to be. I think in my mind, I really didn't want to have a discussion until we got through this period in our history. And obviously, as I've said many times, it's a bad period. Somebody asked me about legacy. And, coaches are legacy is, how many did you win? How many games did you win? Are you a good coach or a bad coach? Some people think I wouldn't go as far as to say a good coach, but a pretty good coach, and some people think I'm not. And I was coaching 14 years in a national paper, fortunately no longer with us, had the front page saying Jim Boeheim is the worst coach in the NCAA tournament. That's 64 coaches. I don't know if it was 64 then. It was a long time ago. It might not have been 60, but it was a lot. It was a lot of coaches. So my legacy isn't too good with that writer. Now, the paper folded, so maybe that says something about the paper. But no, your legacy, how people think of you as a coach is, I remember a great time. I was talking to a player that played at UCLA when I was a young coach, and I said, I just starting out. I asked the player, I said, it's unbelievable. You played for Coach Wooden? And I mean, he said, well, he wasn't that good. We had great players. So I guess everybody has their opinion, and everybody will have their opinion about my coaching ability. That's part of my legacy. The other part, I hope, of my legacy that I care about is that people in this community think, in this nation who are Syracuse people, think that I've been loyal to Syracuse University, that I've done everything I can for Syracuse University, and that I've done everything I can for my community. And I've done everything that I can, and some people will hold me accountable to that or what I haven't done, but I'm comfortable. And what I really care about is the opinion of those people. There's been people all my life who said I shouldn't come to Syracuse, I couldn't play here. My best friend freshman year said, you aren't going to play here. So, I mean, you're going to get that. People didn't want to hire me here. Some guy told my best friend he'll never win any games there. He won't last 2 years. So everybody has their opinions, and I don't really mean I don't give what their opinion is much about it. Like I said, that was kind of a press conference thing. They're entitled to them. It's a great country, and everybody's going to have their opinion.
I'm just wondering whether there's some way to have these multi-million-dollar operations go on the campus of an educational facility and not be constantly, at least under very close scrutiny and a lot of questions raised about whether there is a separation
Well,
between the academics and the
I'm not going to get the exact time, but there was a quote, college athletics is completely out of control. They don't know we don't know what's going on. The athletes aren't going to school. They're not doing this. It was like 1920, for the, 1930. There's always going to be people that feel that way. I think we have 350 schools. I think everybody does it the right way as far as they can. Can mistakes be made? Yes. Do people make mistakes? Yes. And, that's part of it. It's the same in every walk of life, college life. There was hundreds of fraud cases, academic frauds at every school in the country this last year. Every school. It happens. This isn't unique. We're not like one, whoa. And that's what it tends to be. It happens every day. At every university, there's fraud, academic fraud. Kids do things they shouldn't do. And, that's the way it is. I think big-time college athletics it's always been big time. It's gotten bigger because it's more on TV now, but it's always been important. Athletics has always been important. It's just the scale is different. But when I started coaching, if you didn't win, you got fired. If you don't win now, you get fired. There's not major changes. I wanted to play in the NBA. I don't criticize a player. I want every one of our players to hope he can play in the NBA. I want them to be realistic and know that they can. But the ironic thing about players is, everyone that plays at Syracuse can play for money someplace. Everyone. I mean, there's, everybody says, well, only 3% of college athletes play in the NBA. That's true. But they all can play someplace. There is a country you can play in if you want to play. But you get your degree because you will need that degree someday, unless your name's Bill Gates. You will need that degree. And that's what we stress. That's why we had a guy graduate this year as a junior. That's why our 2 juniors who have a year of eligibility left will graduate this spring. Because we believe in that value. And we practice it. We have facts to back it up. This isn't a coach saying we do a good job. This is a coach saying we do a good job, and here are the facts. Here are the facts in the case. That's important.
Coach, me again here in the middle. Just to confirm, you said, are you going to appeal the 9-game suspension?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And also the number of vacated wins has been.
I can't
Is there a
appeal.
number there?
One thing that's important that hasn't been brought out, and I'd like to bring it out, every penalty is a penalty on the coach. Every penalty is a penalty on the school. There is no, they can separate it, but if I can't coach 9 games, it hurts our players and it hurts the school. If I can't get scholarships, it hurts the school and it hurts the coach because, well, we can't get players. I think we can, I think we will. We had 8 players on our team on scholarship when we won the national championship. So I think we can do that, but it's obviously, we think it's the most severe scholarship punishment. That's the school's decision. All of these penalties affect me and they affect the school. And the 9-game suspension affects all of the players on next year's team. I would really, will appeal, it won't work, we will appeal that I could coach in practice to get them ready for the games and take the punishment of not coaching them in the game. And I don't think that I will take salary if I'm not going to be able to coach in games, and I think I'll take that money and donate it to local charities, not my own. Because I don't think I'll feel right doing that. But, so we will appeal that. It's a harsh one. I think I probably, there should be a suspension of games. That's that policy, that's the new way. But, there's been coaches implicated in actually doing something that got a 3-game. So I think it's harsh, but we'll see.
Have they given you a number of wins, and is that also something you appeal?
I can't appeal that. They're not.
Is there a number that you know?
I don't know. No, that's the school's decision, I've never felt taking wins away from a whole team for if one guy did something, depending what it was and so on and so forth. They haven't been consistent in enforcing that, obviously, over the years. So, but we'll see. I think at the end of the day, when the final time comes, does it matter how many games you won? Is that important? It isn't to me. I know, I don't see Bud here, so he thinks it is, but it's nice, but it's not. It's not what I'm going to be thinking about near the end.
Jim, you've talked about Mike Hopkins and your sort of your personal feelings and with him and all, but in terms of the ambiguity of his situation right now, and in terms of going forward, 3 years is a long time to have we're not exactly sure who the coach is going to be. And would you hope that resolution comes pretty quickly?
I would think it will come. Hope that it would come quickly. Yeah, I would hope so. I think this is not, I don't think the chancellor said anything about it not happening. I think all he said was this isn't really the right exact time to get into that, and I think he's right. I think it's a good decision. But I think that will, listen, Mike wanted to leave. I mean, he had a chance to get a job, and he could have been gone. We would never hold him back. I would never do that. And if he saw a great opportunity right now, he would take that job because he wants to be a head coach. But, so I don't think this is a problem. I think people have already made it a problem, so it'll probably be hard to go back for those people. But I think some people that haven't already made a comment on this, I don't think this is an issue. I really don't.
You don't think it's gonna hurt recruiting?
Well, it certainly has not hurt our recruiting so far. And I don't think it will next year, and I'm gonna be here, I'm coaching. So they're coming to, everybody we recruit, coach, you only need to be there for 1 year. That's the reality. This is reality. I'm gonna be here for 3. If I said right now I'm gonna be here 1 year, that would be a problem. I'm not. This will work out in time.
Coach, it's a little off topic, but it's the school district you and your family live in. Would you have any response to reports that Bob McKinney's being forced out at JV?
I trust me, I have enough coaching my team. I respect Coach McKinney. I have known him a long time, and I think he's done a great coaching job at James Will DeWitt High School. That's a high school decision. They make them all the time, and it's not for me to say. As a parent, I might have gone to the meeting, but I was a little preoccupied.
We appreciate everybody coming.
All right, thank you. Once again, I did not determine the end of the question. Did I pass? Thank you.